Thank you for coming back to my channel, and I hope you enjoyed that creative little intro that I included. As you can tell by the title of this video, I recently just switched from my regular conventional finger grips that I would put into my bowling balls to Vacugrips, which are very popular. Um, Originally, I thought that they were completely separate grips. I thought that the entire thing was completely different, and in all honesty, after talking to the guys at Strike FX Pro Shop, um, I realized that I was very wrong. The only real difference from conventional grips to Vacugrips is they end up, when they drill the holes for Vacugrips, they drill the upper part of the grip where your fingers actually go into the hole bigger. That way, when your fingers go into the grips can widen, creating that vacuum seal. And for me, I've been dealing with a lot of inconsistency in my release, a lot of discomfort in my release. I might have one ball that rolls really well, one ball that rolls really bad, one ball that feels good in my hand, one ball that feels really bad coming off my hand. And making the switch from regular, conventional, just drilling a hole, putting a finger grip in it, to the Vacugrips. I bowled this past Thursday. I ended up getting my entire main bag's arsenal. My Dark Code, my Proton Physixs, my Venom Recoil, my High Road Pearl, and my Mix, or Terry, as she is named. I got all of those balls drilled or fitted with the Vacugrips, and I haven't felt that comfortable bowling in probably the last 7 months. So I'm really excited to see where I can go from here, because my average right now is a 195, and now that I'm comfortable, I think I can really take it to the next level. So let's get into the video. So this particular clip that's been playing for the last 2.5 minutes was kind of my first real practice with the Vacugrips outside of the test ball, the Parallax Effect, which you can barely see on the rack. I was kind of going back and forth between balls. I just threw my Dark Code, and that was a really nice shot and a really nice messenger. Um, I love that Dark Code. That Dark Code has tons of shape down lane. Um, and I love when my balls make shape down lane. So it was really good for me to get that ball. Going to my Proton Physixs, that ball loves to get up and go. And going from my conventional grips to my Vacugrips, that ball went from having a lot of revs to having so many more revs than I thought it could handle. And that ball ends up rolling 10 times better now, even after I made the switch. That particular shot with the Dark Code, I ended up missing a few boards left, and it went through the oil and never really made that sharp movement into the pocket. I do believe this was my first 10-pin shot with Terry with the conventional grips, and not surprising, I missed. It's a work in progress, especially when you make adjustments like that. Things are gonna feel uncomfortable, and they really felt uncomfortable. Um, I wasn't really trying to stick to one ball. I was just trying to get comfortable using the Vacugrips, which is why I went from ball to ball to ball. Um, I just threw my Dark Code on the right lane, which during during me filming this, I felt like the right lane needed a little bit more surface on the ball to get that shape that I like, because it was a little it had a little bit more oil on it than lane 55. But when I switched to Vacus, I ended up, I would have to say, I probably gained maybe 150, 200 revolutions, and my ball speed went from 14 and a half to almost 16 miles an hour just by changing the grips. And like that last shot with the dart code was perfect. Um, I hit my spot on the lane. It felt good coming off of my hand, and it put 10 back in the pit. Um, I switched over to my Parallax Effect. Quite honestly, I don't know why. Um, that ball just for some reason didn't really pick up on the lane. I do have my dart code at a 4,000 instead of a polish, so that might be why, because my Parallax Effect is at a box finish of 1,500 grit polish. Um, but that's another ball that loves to wind up and get going. So now that I've just kind of gone through my practice video, I'm just going to jump into the individual ball videos that I took when I switched over to Vacus, starting off with the dart code, because as of right now, it's my most favorite bowling ball I have in my main line. When I was throwing the dart code, it felt really good off of my hand, and it felt super, super, super strong. Um, Going on to the second video, I left a stone 8 in the first video, which for some reason, I tend to leave a lot with the dart code. Um, that particular shot, flush, perfect. I hit my spot. I hit everything that I needed to hit, and it put 10 back in the pit. And for me, the biggest part of um, my bowling experience is being comfortable while I'm bowling. And like I said, I haven't really felt that comfortable in the last couple of months. Um, Certainly not in 2022. That particular dart code shot, I'm actually gonna rewind that back. That shot I thought was a little bit wide, but I was really able to get my hand under the ball. Really revved up really, really well. Which, if I would have thrown that shot with the way that ball used to be, with the old just basic inserts, that ball probably would have ended up in the gutter. This next shot, we have one more after this, but this next shot, just, it felt a little bit off. It hit the pin. It ended up being like a swisher strike. I hit a little bit high. I missed my spot to the right. But I'm sorry, to the left. But I'm almost positive I lined up incorrectly. So the final shot of the dart code. I quite frankly did not want to stop throwing this ball because I thought I could go 300 the rest of the night. Um, it felt really, really good coming off of my hand. I didn't have any pulling, I didn't have any tearing like I used to. I didn't have to force my fingers into the hole. As soon as I set my cradle, it just felt so good. So moving on to the Proton Physixs, I ended up bowling on the same set of lanes, 55, 56, but specifically 55 for these particular views. This video. As you can see, as I said earlier, that ball loves to rev up and get going. In that first shot, you can really see that ball start to rev up really, really fast. And I was actually shocked that I was able to keep that ball where it was, and still get to the pocket. I threw the second shot a little bit left compared to the first shot because I did not feel great about where the first shot ended up being, and I kind of miscalculated. Going into the third video, I was telling myself I need to hit my spot. I was too far right the first time, too far left the second time. and I tried to get a little bit more power behind this particular ball, and I kind of felt like something pop in my side. But I ended up hitting my spot, and when I had conventional grips in that particular bowling ball, my Proton Physixs, that ball ended up sliding way too much and not really gripping the lane. And I ended up trying to put too much of my hand in it, and I would end up hurting myself, hurting my wrist. And once I switched to Vacugrips, it ended up grabbing the lane a lot more. I got a lot more revolutions on it, and it felt good throwing that ball. Now, the last of the balls that I really focused on, I have the Phaze 2. Now, this Phaze 2 I have drilled pinned down because an it's a symmetrical solid, and I don't really like sim solids that much. I'm more of a asim solid or an asim pearl, which is why I love the dark code so much. And I talked to the guys at Strike FX, and they suggested drilling it pinned down because it has more of that shape that you get from an asymmetrical ball, where you have a lot of hook. Um, and you can really see that in the first couple of videos that I took. That ball loves to rev up really late. And it really snaps hard off of the spot. That first shot felt nice, but I felt like I was a little bit too far left. So I moved over a couple of boards. I think it was only three. Um, and the second shot, I ended up getting my hand really around the side of the ball instead of under the ball, which is why it had even more of a sharper hook down lane. And if I tried doing that any other time with my regular grips, that ball guaranteed would have ended up in the gutter. So for the third shot, I really tried to stay away from getting on the side of the ball, and I ended up getting too far under the ball, and I went through the nose. So for the last shot, I was just telling myself I need to throw a good shot. And this last shot, I I called it after this because I felt like I was just being counterintuitive. I missed left, but that ball was still able to maintain its spot on the lane and still go into the pocket really nice. I just wouldn't live in that line because 4 or 5 frames into a league game with 5 people bowling on each lane, that ball would guaranteed go Brooklyn every time. So